power to the collective. My voice, my throat hurts today, so I'm not really gonna scream, get out of character, get crazy. But today I have a really exciting video. I'm very excited to put this out. Alright, if you're not already familiar with my series, like, share, comment, subscribe, okay? This is very important. A lot of information. You don't have to believe me, because the information already exists. That's the best part of this, okay? I don't really give my opinion that much on this channel. As far as this series, that's the best part. Anyway, let's quickly cover some things that they say about the moon, which we know isn't true, which is going to ultimately show that there's no other explanation besides for the ancients. So anything that doesn't follow the scientific method within this discussion is ancient teachings. Okay, not my opinion. Anyway, they're saying the moon is 4.5 billion years old. They're saying the universe is 13 billion, right? So the moon being 4 billion is according to them saying the universe is 13 billion, which we already in the first video proved that the universe is 26 billion according to them. So that's obviously not true, okay? They're saying the moon came from a collision with Theia, right? Which is another planet, right? Or another body, right? And somehow the moon is a perfect ball, right? Somehow it eclipses the sun perfectly, right? And somehow it's 400 times closer and 400 times smaller so that they eclipse perfectly, right? They're saying the moon's a rock, right? It reflects sunlight, right? And the craters are caused by asteroids. There's no life on the moon, and people claim to land on it, right? So we're going to debunk all these ideas, okay? Very simple. So that's the Death Star, right? So the moon is basically an alien spaceship. I don't like the word alien. The moon is an extraterrestrial spaceship that is used to transmit frequencies and change them. And it's used to also soul harvest, but that's another video. Okay. So, alien spaceship used to cause the flood, okay? And that's not my opinion. The Arcadians are pre-lunar people, according to them. Already owned their land before Zeus. And there's Colombian natives that talk about the times before the moon. There's the Zulus, there's the Sumerians, everybody, okay? Very simple. Not me making things up. And the moon is primarily made of silicate, pyroxene, and feldspar, okay? And the reason for that is the moon is a crystal ship radiating plasma, okay? And that's what the Kordylewski clouds are. Alright, very simple. I'm going to prove that later in this video. Okay, sounds crazy now, but let's get into it a little bit. Okay, this is a real picture from a video. I screenshotted it. Okay, this is called a moon discharge. Okay, so for anybody thinking they could just land on the surface of this thing, alright, this is a moon discharge. Okay, and that's an electrostatic phenomena that happens as lightning. Okay, and anyone can look this up, right? They have scientific papers on this thing. Okay. So the moon actually gives off its own light. It doesn't reflect sunlight. This is part of it, and we're going to prove that right now. All right. So, snakes with their thermal vision, and then thermal cameras you can see in the night. What is thermal and how does it work? Right. You see the body heat of whatever it is. So the fact that there's thermal images of the moon means there's a heat signature coming from the moon. This is legitimate facts. Okay. This is a video. Okay, and this is actually a picture, and they took many different, this is actually a video, and they took many different filters, and I screenshotted all of them, okay, so people can see, alright, you see that, okay, same picture, just a different filter, okay, you see that, right, and you see that, right, so, this is also a picture of a moon, but it's Saturn's moon. Okay, and it has the same horn feature when it comes to the heat signature, because that's actually what the crescent was about. All right, further videos we'll get into that. Okay, so the moon's heat signature and Saturn's heat signature. Okay, the moon's heat signature. All right, so how are these bodies reflecting light when they have their own heat signature? They're giving off their own light. That's how thermal works. You see the light being given off by the said being, right? If it's just an object, it won't have that. Okay, so Another claim is that asteroids hit the moon all the time and create craters. I'm not doubting that that's happened a few times, but they actually did an experiment in a lab, okay, plasma crater experiment, okay, laboratory modeling of meteorite impact craters by a plasma Z pinch, okay. So they conducted this experiment and they recreated the moon's craters using plasma, okay. So where does the plasma come from? It radiates from the crystal when the frequencies of Saturn and Jupiter and the solar system and the different things that it's basically filtering, right, which we're going to get into later how that works, that's the radiation that comes off of it, right, is the plasma, right, and that plasma has effects, right. And there's been cosmologists who have explained moon phenomena using plasma, right, like Alphen, right, in his cosmology that we went over in the cosmology part of this, right. So Alphen used plasma phenomena to explain transient moon phenomena, right? So when the moon is on the horizon, it appears larger, okay? And that was explained through Alphen's galactic circuit model, how that's a plasma phenomena, okay? And we're going to see that a lot of phenomena when it comes to cosmology can be explained by plasma, which needs an electric field. So the electric universe is a real fact when you actually study science in an unbiased way. And that sounds really pretentious, right, when there's actually scientists doing this every day. But when you're just parroting talking points and like you're a great mathematician and you got your hands on with the technology, there's a lot of respect there. But when it comes to explaining phenomena, how things actually work, there's not the largest consensus of the mainstream community trying to figure these things out without being blinded by certain materialistic models, right? So, anyway, moving on from that. More evidence that the moon gives off its own light. So scientists created lunar panels, okay? So those are not solar panels, they're lunar panels, okay? And they're actually 35% more efficient than solar panels, okay? And how is that possible if it's reflecting light? Oh, the light reflected is making it more powerful, more effective, right? Let's see the science they come up with that. You know what? They'll write an equation and people believe it just because it's a math equation, right? Because that's how science works, because science is math, right? And math is science. That's why they're separate subjects in school, right? Because they're the same thing. So, the transient lunar phenomena. This is different than the transient moon phenomena, okay? The transient lunar phenomena is flashing lights on the moon. So people have recorded and scientists have seen flashing lights on the moon, and they don't know how to explain it based off their materialistic model that they created, right? That they're so deeply indebted into because they created these fake videos from 1969, right? So, because of war reasons, right? Anyway, in order to be transient, it has to be an electrical phenomenon, right? So that means the moon has an electric field because it's a transient thing, right? And I've used Charles Steinmetz's paper in a lot of these videos already in this series. So if people aren't familiar with it, right? The paper is from 1917, okay? It's Charles Steinmetz. It's Elementary Lectures on Electrical Discharges, Waves, Impulses, and Transients, okay? In there, he fully explains the electrical field for electrical engineering purposes, and no one has furthered his works on mathematics since 1917. Okay? I suggest people look up his works and not believe what I'm saying. Okay? Anyway, the moon does have an electric field because the exosphere is electrified on the moon. Alright? Very simple. And lunar dust can levitate due to electrostatic forces on the moon. Because there's electrostatic forces, because there's an electric field going on. And electrostatics is just dielectricity. Okay, so the moon has capacity. Understood? Understood? So, in this part, we're going to prove that the moon isn't 235 or 250,000 miles away, or whatever number they created. Right, mathematically that makes sense to them, right? this is someone flashing their laser onto the dark side of the moon, and because it's a crystal, it's hitting right here. But if it was 250,000 or 200,000 or even 100,000 miles away, I don't believe this laser would be able to hit that. And maybe they could prove me wrong with their mathematics, but we have other reasons why the moon is close, okay? And the moon shadow is one of those reasons. And the umbra penumbra thing, recreate it in real life using an experiment, and then we'll believe that, all right? And we shouldn't have to believe it because it's science, so either prove it or shut up, respectfully, okay? Lunar corona. Very important. Wilhelm Reich's works went over in the Cosmology, went over in the Sun, okay? And in Wilhelm Reich's works, he basically proves that the corona of the Sun, right? All coronas are excitations of orgone fields, and these are local phenomena. So the body doesn't have to be close, but the illumination is close within the atmosphere. All right. So the moon having a corona means it's within the atmosphere. At least the corona of the moon that we're seeing is within the atmosphere. Okay. And a little bit later in this video, we're going to see how these bodies aren't exactly where they're saying that it is. Okay. And how we know it for a fact. Okay. Not me making this stuff up. Okay. So very important to, there's a lot of talking points, observations against a local moon. So how we explain that? It's actually, so I said we're going to get into it later. We're explaining it now. Okay. Virtual sun navigation. For those who don't know, the sun isn't exactly where it appears to be in the sky. All right. We know that through celestial navigation. That's why the virtual sun exists in celestial navigation. All right, and the same thing with the moon. All right, and that has to do with the local illumination of the coronas. All right, that's not necessarily where the moon is, just like that's not necessarily where the sun is located within space. All right, that's just where the light excitation is happening and where we're able to see it. That's where the fields are interacting. All right. We are killing that model here today, man. So this is a picture of Venus, and you can see it inside the dark side of the moon. Okay, and that's where the Muslim flags with the moon with the star, that star is Venus. Okay, and people could witness this. People could witness during certain alignments Venus within the dark side of the moon. All right, and that's not the only picture. All right, there's other pictures. Okay, that shouldn't happen if the moon is a solid rock. Okay, but it's actually a crystal. That's why you can see through it. Right? So you can see it during certain alignments. Okay, another reason we know the moon isn't this solid object is because of lunar waves. Very interesting phenomena. Watch the videos on it. I suggest you look it up. Scientists have they have no idea how that happens, which is amazing phenomenon. So this picture, I really don't know why I added this. Time-lapse, synchronized pictures of the moon in certain positions in certain places, and supposedly it's not supposed to be possible based on the current models. We could deep dive into that in another video. I'm not sure why that's there. Boom. More killing of the moon model here, right? As far as their model. So the moon and the sun rise where? In the east, set where? In the west. Very simple, right? No, because during solar eclipses, the moon transits the sun from the west, right? And the way they explain that is through the Earth's rotation and the moon's orbit, even though the Earth don't rotate, and we already destroyed that in the cosmology part, right? So they have no explanation for how this happens at all. They have no idea, right? This is pictures. Look at that. Craziness, right? If the moon rises in the east, sets in the west, then why has it been witnessed going from west to east during eclipses, right? Very crazy. And another thing, If the eclipse is the Earth's shadow, why during time-lapse photos and videos of the eclipse does the shadow of the moon change directions by almost 90 degrees? They have time-lapse pictures of this stuff happening in real time, destroying the model. And then they're going to say, oh, you're crazy. Forget crazy. Like, just look at the evidence unbiasedly. Like, it doesn't take a scientist to know certain things, right? And then you could look to people as experts for things, but you could use your brain too. They have a 17-year-old that corrected ISS data, and NASA hired him. A literal 17-year-old high school student. If the 17-year-old that discovered that the continents look like they connect, which created the Pangea theory, which is actually because they created these maps based on the Mercator projection, right? So that's not even real. But there's people who have proved things in science that weren't even scientists. Like, they act like such gatekeepers when it comes to these things, and it's so weird, right? So another thing, which is crazy, right? But in this model, it's not crazy. The moon affects the sun's orbit. For people who don't know, the moon directly affects the sun's orbit. Okay? Literally. And the same is because of the Earth's rotation, which no one's ever felt or measured, and we already destroyed that in the other video. Okay? And it's Earth's rotation and the combination of the moon's orbit. So they don't know why the moon affects the sun. Okay? And that has to do with how the moon affects the whole system. Alright? We're going to get into that. This is polarized light based on electrostatic discharges. And this is one explanation for lunar phases. But I have another explanation, and I don't necessarily think it's this. Okay? You can see the glass, and then you can see it like almost disappears, right, with the electrostatic force. Okay? So, the ancient Chinese believed during solar eclipses a celestial dragon was devouring the sun. That's very interesting because there are celestial nodal points. So like in Hindu cosmology, the nodes, those dark bodies have already been observed by astronomers in the 17 and 1800s, okay? So the moon phases are caused by dark bodies, and it's not even it's not the Earth's nothing, okay? Very simple. So, for people who don't know, there's more than one moon, okay? And actually, recently, they came out with the second moon and the Earth's orbit and stuff, and that's actually the 2025 PN7. Okay, so that's one of the new moons. And in the 1800s, they already discovered new moons, right, by Dr. George Walter Math, okay, of Hamburg. And it turns out that we have 9 moons, right? And they say, oh, they orbit the sun. They don't orbit the Earth. Well, the sun orbits the Earth, and we already proved that. So it does orbit the Earth. Ha. Anyway, so these are the names of the 9 moons, okay? And there's 7 here, and then you got the Kordylewski clouds, okay? And there's actually 2 of them, and they're plasma clouds, right? And they're also known as moons, okay? So that's what makes the 9, okay? And because there's 2, it's actually a double layer, double sheath going on, right? Which actually makes it a portal, okay? And it's actually known as a possible cosmic superbrain to scientists, right? And it's a combination of plasma, liquid, and crystals, okay? So the plasma, liquid, and crystals is what's being radiated out the moon because it's trapping frequencies and absorbing it, and that is what it's releasing, okay? Very simple. So just to cover this, we haven't landed on the moon. Okay, so this is a picture of George Bush, right, going through going through NASA, one of their locations, and you can see the green screen, right? So they use green screen. We know they use green screen. We know they use CGI, right? And you can clearly see it. All right. We know that a lot of the astronauts turn to actors after their careers. Not a lot of them, but there's been a good number of them. Okay, as far as the older astronauts because they were more trying to hide the fact that they were actors. Okay, and actually, as time has gone on, they've gotten more bold, right? So you have Katy Perry and you have celebrities, right? Like William Shatner that they're sending them to space, right? And then now in the Artemis one, you even have one of them was an actress, right? You got Christina Koch, right? And she was in Mad Max, right? So they're literally sending actresses and actors to space, right? But I also do have to say that the other guy that they're saying is an actor, right, from the Artemis mission. Y'all are racist, man. Y'all know that isn't the same, man, bro. Y'all need to stop it. Seriously, okay? We're not doing any lies on this channel, okay? And anything that needs to be touched is going to be touched, okay? We're not hiding. We're not denying any science or anything, okay? We're using science to prove our points, and anything that's blurred between the lines that science don't have an answer for, we're using the ancient mythology to answer those questions because we're proving that the science matches up and that the materialistic models are folding. Okay? So, Capricorn 1, they already proved that they could fake the moon landings in Capricorn 1, right? We know NASA has CGI artists. We know they have CGI artists in science, right? That's how they get all these pictures from space from telescopes like the James Webb telescope, which is a literal infrared telescope. It doesn't even take pictures. They're collecting data and they're having people draw images up, literally. Okay? So, AI, and they're using AI, right? You can use AI right now to recreate the moon landings, right? The newer ones, the Artemis ones, not even the older ones, okay? And they've had AI since the 60s, okay? And declassified CIA documents, okay? It's called Artificial Intelligence Research in the USSR, okay? They already had this stuff. They already had Stanley Kubrick and all these people who could pull this stuff off, okay? Oh, that's conspiracy talk. Conspiracy is not a disrespectful word, okay? So, stop calling people conspiracy theorists if you want to call them something crazy. And crazy is a disrespectful word either. So stop trying to disrespect people when you're actually complimenting them. Y'all are weird, okay? Literally. I'm going to end by giving y'all the science on why the moon is here, what is it doing, okay? Since we already know their model of this perfect moon being smashed from a planet doesn't make sense, and the orbits based on the cosmology doesn't make sense. The moon having its own light already proves that their theories are wrong. So let's dive into some science and see how it works, okay? So the moon absorbs energy from the solar system and filters it. Why? Because it's a weapon to take energy from Jupiter, which represents the divine feminine energy, okay? And it amplifies Saturn's frequencies to Earth because it's a giant silicate crystal radiating plasma, and that's what those clouds are, okay? How does it attack the divine feminine? Think about the period, for example. That's one example, okay? The moon phases directly affects females, all right? Because it's a weapon to attack the females, all right? Think about how religion treats females, okay? It's been an attack for a reason. The oldest religions worship females and the divine feminine energy, okay? There's a reason there's an attack on it. And that's why the moon came later. Alright? So, the same way you meditate and tune into Earth's frequency, okay? And they already proved that in the gateway process, if anyone read that, okay? Based on Bentov's work, you can meditate and hemisync your brain into Earth's frequency and get your brain on the same wave till it's at the 783 hertz that it matches Earth's frequency. They already got the science to that, okay? That's how the moon works. It locks itself into the frequencies of Earth's and absorbs, and the solar system, it absorbs these bodies, okay, and their frequencies, okay? And that's actually the reason for the moon's weak atmosphere, okay? There's plasma streaming from the Earth and Sun, and it makes the moon ionosphere barely detectable, okay? So what's happening is all this plasma being released and all this energy and plasma being absorbed. You could barely see the moon's ionosphere because of all this activity that's going on within just the moon, okay? And it affects the sun's orbit. It does all these things, just this body, right? So the reason it's made of silicate, right, which is a quartz crystal. The moon is a giant quartz crystal ship. Why? Because it's here to steal magnetic information, because that's what quartz crystals do, okay? When they're subjected to EMF fields or magnetic fields, right? So it changes the molecular structure and biology of the Earth, right? So think about the periods of the females. It directly affects the biology of the whole Earth, okay? It's a precise electronic resonator. What does that mean? It's a component that generates a highly stable, exact frequency when subjected to an electrical signal, okay? It serves as the heartbeat of a circuit, providing the master clock in computers, stabilizing radio frequencies in telecommunications, and acting as a sharp filter for electronic equipment. The moon is literally filtering the frequencies from the solar system, okay, and projecting or radiating the frequencies that they want to this realm. It's that deep, and you look at it every day. You look at that thing down there every day. You don't even know what that thing is doing, right? Some people worship it. Some people do magic with it. It's a frequency. It's a weapon. It's like anything, like a gun. A gun's a weapon. It's no good or evil. It's power. You can use it, right? But just know what it is. Know what you're using. Know where it comes from. Seriously. Okay? So, piracy, right? Why is it made of that? Because when it's introduced to magnetic induction, it could change between different magnetic phases, right? So these phases of the moon are literally induction phases, okay? Very important. I'm not talking about the phases of the moon, okay? I'm talking about the frequencies, okay, and the energies and the cloud and how all those things are happening, okay? So, feldspar, when introduced to a magnetic field, can be used for mineral separation. Mineral separation. Okay? Very important. So, real quick, you got the SKR, which is Saturn kilometer radiation, right? Which is basically EMF coming from Saturn, right? So Saturn sends out EMFs through the whole solar system, right? And the moon traps some of those frequencies and projects them to Earth. So it enhances the frequencies of Saturn. That's partially why the moon is there. Okay. And the Saturn also has electrostatic discharges, right? SEDs, right? So EMF, electric field, is a combination of magnetism and dielectricity, right? So the Jupiter's magnetic field actually affects space weather, okay? So that's how powerful Jupiter's magnetic field is, that it's affecting space weather in the whole solar system, just like the sun, okay? That's very powerful. And that is partially why they're trying to, or they're not trying, because they're using the moon to attack Jupiter, right? Because Jupiter used to be the main one sending up the magnetic frequencies into our solar system, and that's basically space weather was because of Jupiter and Saturn in our solar system, primarily, and as well as Tiamat, right? That was like the central three. That's why 3 is a very big number, okay? But anyway, this video proved that the moon definitely ain't what they're talking about, right? So even if someone wants to disprove me, oh, the moon ain't no alien spaceship that's doing all of this, the moon ain't no rock, and the moon ain't reflecting no damn sunlight. So come disprove that. How about that? And this is why I do this series, right? So for people to know, right? Get some facts under our belt, right? So when people come and try and check what the hell we got going on here, we're talking our spiritual stuff, right? And we're giving our real esoteric downloads, but we're quoting our ancestors, right? So we don't look stupid, right? That's the thing I'm trying to do. It's just be like, oh, you're just talking crap. You're just a bunch of whatever, conspiracy theorists, druggies, uneducated, pagan or witch. The terms changed over the centuries, but at the end of the day, their disrespect is gonna come to a halt with this series because, like I said, all of this is going down in PDFs. We're not playing with these people. I'm very, very honored to be in this position to present this stuff and to have gone through all that stuff in my life where people would call me crazy, that I didn't know nothing, and I was wasting my time. I should just be working a job and just be focusing on that only, like the aspect of just working and nothing else, no creativity, no spiritual stuff, nothing, right? Just basically be a bot. And me just being rebellious and being in situations that probably wasn't great, but actually having the time to study. 15 years of independent research got me here to help the collective so that we can move forward for the future. So I'm super honored to be in that position. And I'm super humbled to be a teacher because that makes me a student. Super appreciative. And to the people who tune in and to the new followers, thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. None of my businesses are to make monetary gains only. Okay, 15% goes to charity. All right, that's how we do it. Everything's built off helping. None of my businesses that'll ever come out will be destroying the earth, not healthy for people, toxic in any way, chemicals, none of that stuff. Everything legit, everything for the earth, everything for the spirits, and everything to as far as artistically is to spread knowledge, okay, to help people, all right, to help the earth more. But you gotta help people because they affect the earth a lot, right? So it's just by default. And study and find your own. Education is the biggest thing, okay? You don't need school for education, right? But education is a big thing. If you gotta go to school for it, fine. But I'm not gonna talk up for these things. But anyway, thank you for tuning in. Next videos will be our astrology, the earth. After, we're gonna touch on some deep subjects. So for this one, take those facts and do what you want with them. Peace.